Welcome to your Daily 5 for Tuesday, March 11th, 2025. Lando and I decided to watch another movie together this week, and we chose to watch I believe it's the 2024 film. I think that's when it was released, but the very, very interestingly reviewed and Razzie Award-winning Francis Ford Coppola film, Megalopolis, a movie that has had a really, really interesting, wide set of reactions to it. Lando wanted to watch this. I hadn't seen it. I was interested anyway, and we decided to go ahead and watch this. And obviously, we'll be discussing this in detail on Friday, but I'm going to give you a spoiler-free review, at least my review, and I think Lando will fall along the same lines. But I'll just tell you, we both had a great time with this movie, and in particular, I think about 10 to 15 minutes in, I was completely sold on loving this movie. This is absolutely, and this was always what I read that it was supposed to be. This is what when I saw some interviews with Coppola when he was talking about it, everything that was written about this movie suggested that this was a movie that was a passion project, a long gestating film, and Coppola was basically just making the movie he wanted to make because in some ways, he had said, I think, that this may well be his last film, and he decided to just not hold back. And that is exactly what it feels like. Narratively, this is a fairly simple film. In fact, the movie is very overt in what it's trying to say. I think it is actually probably one of the most easy to explain films. We won't do it in this. We'll talk about it on Friday. But as far as what the movie is actually about, it's pretty easy to figure out. But what it is wrapped in, everything that is encasing the core message of the film, or messages really, it is surrounded by just this almost impossible to describe visual just majesty. I don't know how else to put it. There's so much visual power and experimentation from a filmmaker who's been making movies for a very long time. This is in some ways, it reminded me in many ways of Apocalypse Now, which is probably his best known film outside of The Godfather to most people. But at the same time, it is a movie that I think could not have been made before now, including there are some CG effects, I'll just warn you, that don't necessarily look the best. But at the same time, I don't think there's a frame of this movie that doesn't feel very uniquely expressive, in particular, that doesn't feel like this is the direct thing that Coppola wanted you to see. And that makes it really compelling. It just really is. I could not stop, no matter what you could say about this movie. I think this is the best way to describe it for anybody who might be kind of, cautious about it going in. You will not look away from the screen. Now, there are times where some things feel like maybe they were rushed, or perhaps that money wasn't available to finish certain things. It's been described as a beautiful mess. I'm not sure if I would use the word mess, but I wouldn't necessarily disagree with it. But this is, I think, one of the... I was thinking of filmmakers like David Lynch when I saw this movie, not necessarily to compare the styles, but in terms of in late in his life, Lynch was really making things that he wanted to make. There was a certain point where it feels like he made the decision that he had to make the things that he wanted to make, because he wasn't sure how much time he would have left. And I think that's where Coppola is with this movie. So it may not necessarily be the most cohesive movie, but it feels like probably his most personal project, which from everything I've read, this is something he's been working on for a long time. He's had this ready to go in some form in his head for a very long time, and he's finally decided to actually make it. And I think every bit of it feels like something that nobody else quite would have done. There are other filmmakers who I sort of get echoes of, but at the same time, there's nobody that feels like when he makes this movie, there's so much individual detail. There's so much intention in this film that I think, yes, it may not necessarily be his most, again, cohesive film, but I think this is one that for people who are appreciative of artistic vision and what directors bring when they have an individual voice, I think this will only grow in popularity and recognition. So it's a mess as far as trying to watch it right now, but there are ways to watch it. So if you get the opportunity, I could not recommend it highly enough. Don't go into it expecting a traditional film. Go into it looking for Coppola's vision, and you won't be disappointed. Later.